Okay, calm down. You got limits, man. You got limits, man. Okay, calm down.
Hello and welcome to a special additional breaking news live stream of the Katie Halper Show. As people probably know, we are here every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., but sometimes something happens and it's important enough for us to do another live stream. We did another one, I can't remember how long ago, but if this is your first time here, welcome. We do stream every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you would like to, actually, no, I'm just going to tell you to do it. Please do give this a like, give it a thumbs up. Also subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. That's a great way to help support this show. And we are gathered here today because I was really excited and disturbed, honestly, to see a certain interaction between journalist Sam Husseini, who's been on the show before. He interrupted, or he asked a question. He and Max Blumenthal both posed questions to bloody Blinken, the Secretary of State, the outgoing Secretary of State, Antony Blinken. And the response to that from the security was a little bit scary. And then on top of that, the response to that from some corporate media was just as scary. So we're going to bring in Sam. He's going to tell us what happened. Then we're going to watch the clip and talk about Palestine, Gaza, the Biden administration, and media complicity in genocide. So welcome, Sam.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Of course.
And you probably know more about the media coverage than I do.
Oh, well, yeah, we have some real gems of people. Like we got great examples of media and also kind of power brokers and members of the political elite who were pretty upset. So why don't you tell us, before we play this video that's gone kind of viral, set up what happened here, where you were, why you were there, what the context was.
It's at the State Department briefing room. The immediate context is that Blinken, who hasn't been in there in about a year, finally deigned to come on an hour's notice to pontificate about how glorious he thinks the free press is. And to do a victory lap about what he thinks how great U.S. foreign policy is. And I try to ask pointed, tough, timely questions. And Max Blumenthal interjected before I did and made his series of questions and comments. The overall context is that I've gone to the State Department fairly regularly for several years. They have made a habit of avoiding calling on me, but occasionally they have. And over the last several months, they've completely blackballed me, not calling me at all. I'm going to be releasing a tape on this tomorrow, likely, of Matthew Miller outright telling me that he has no intention of calling on me. So this is set policy. So I attempted to interject. I didn't mean to get hauled out of there. I meant to try to pointedly ask timely questions. And I did so a couple of times before the tape that you're probably going to shows. Like I asked, why do you refuse to acknowledge the Geneva Conventions applying to Gaza? That's U.S. policy. U.S. policy does not recognize the Geneva Conventions as applying to the Palestinians. It's utterly scandalous. The U.S. public is totally unaware of this, and they don't want me asking a question like that to Blinken.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's take a look at this. And was this during, you interrupted him, a lot of people said? Is this true that this was an interruption? It was not during a question and answer period? Not that I care. I'm just curious about how okay.
He was filibustering. I mean, he was making he was making a speech in what was supposed to be a press conference.
Right. But Sam, I mean, obviously people care a lot about norms and conventions, which is why they support genocide and breaking the Leahy law and killing children. So they're real sticklers. So, all right, let's take a look at this clip of you trying to ask some questions.
City said simply, we are being reborn. It's also a moment of historic possibility.
You can leave, sir.
Again, I'm happy to address questions.
No, I want him to answer my question.
We're answering questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll let him speak. We'll hear from him.
Thank you.
Gets to make lots of speeches.
Thank you.
I answer questions.
I look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Instead of making another speech every
Sir,
day.
would you like to be escorted out?
Go away.
You don't have the responsibility to tell me where to go. You want to be escorted out or not?
I will
Thank you.
answer questions.
I look forward to answering questions in a minute.
I'm a
Thank
journalist.
you.
I'm not a potted plant.
Everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions in just a minute. Thank you.
Miller has explicitly told me he will not answer my questions. Thank you. Justify
So-
what I'm doing.
I have no greater pleasure in this job than crossing off a list I carry in my pocket, the names of those who have been arbitrarily detained and unfairly held hostage, unjustly held hostage, and bringing them home, returning them to their families, returning them to their loved ones. Finally,
Get your hands off me.
this morning,
Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. Answer a damn question. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? Do you know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I am asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions until I'm asking
please, sir,
questions.
respect the process. Wasn't
Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders.
Please, sir, respect the process. Thank you.
Oh, respect the process. Respect this process. Well, everybody from Amnesty International, to the ICJ, saying that Israel is doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal! Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague? Why aren't you in The Hague?
Finally, we've worked to modernize.
Wow. Okay. So, did you expect that you would get like manhandled and dragged out of there?
No, I didn't. The closest thing that I've done to this is when during the Trump administration, they brought in Elliot Abrams, and I tried to ask a series of questions to Elliot Abrams, and they had a guy off camera. It was very skillful. They had a guy off camera pointing to other reporters to get them to chime in and ask tough questions. And so I kept chiming in questions and they kept ignoring them. I expected something like that to happen. But they escalated and started, and you can tell it's Matt Miller off to the side, getting the so-called security people, sicking them on me.
Right.
And then after, I got all, they handcuffed me in the hallway. They hurt my wrist. They hurt my shoulder. They took me out of there the long way around. So I guess they could push me around more. It was all very thuggish.
Wow.
And then they wouldn't even give me their names. The guy at the end of the process, I ended up taking his picture. But when I tried to, see what his name was, he hid that. So it was just total, mafioso stuff.
Wow. Yeah. And so tell us about the questions that you really wanted to ask him about.
Sure. I put a piece up on my Substack, which,
Yeah, we can actually show that if you want.
Sure. Which was just a cleaned up version of the text that I had sitting in front of me. Because I knew I had to, make pithy questions to try to get him in there. You saw me allude to it there. The administration this last week has made a lot of their May 31st pronouncement, saying that they put in place this process to have a ceasefire, an apparent alleged ceasefire. Few people remember the context of what happened on May 31st. Just before that, on May 24th, was the final orders from the International Court of Justice. This was part of the South Africa genocide case against Israel. They issued a series of orders beginning in January, I suppose, and then going into May. And the May one was the clearest. They outright said, not just simply a general statement, stop all genocidal activity. They directly said, Israel has been attacking Rafah since May 7th. It must immediately stop its attacks in Rafah. It cannot invade Rafah. It was a very clear order from the International Court of Justice as to what should happen. And what should have happened at that point is that the UN Security Council should have passed, or at least voted on, a resolution to implement those orders. That is what a properly functioning legal system would do. Algeria apparently drafted such a resolution, and then the US tried to stall it for a couple of days, and then Biden comes out with this proposal claiming that Israel had put forward this ceasefire proposal. Hooray, hurrah, we're at the end of the road. All of the killing is going to stop now. And then they got they got Algeria to table to put aside their resolution, and they got everybody else, basically, except the Russians. They abstained on this, but they didn't veto it, to pass a resolution blessing this alleged ceasefire plan by the United States. And that's basically what helped give them the green light to facilitate Israel continuing its carnage, in the UN world all of these months. And I've been pushing for other ways to remedy that. For example, what should have happened is that they should have pushed for a U.S. veto, the U.S. veto it, and then take it to the General Assembly. With the 2/3 vote in the General Assembly, you can do what's called uniting for peace. And then you can have resolutions with teeth. This was done in the case of South Africa. This was done in 1956 regarding Gaza. In 1956, when Britain and France, along with Israel, in like the last gasp of outright colonialism, they invaded Sinai and Gaza when Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. And they couldn't get anything through at the Security Council because, I'm sorry, I'm doing a bit of history lesson, but it's really important.
No, this is good. Yeah.
I know this stuff. And they couldn't get anything through the Security Council because the French and the British, who were in on this plot, had a veto there. So they used this uniting for peace mechanism. You actually had the US teaming up with the Soviet Union to force Britain and France and eventually Israel to get out of the Sinai and Gaza. And Eisenhower heralded this as this new era of international cooperation as one of the sort of great achievements of that era. And here we are. And, I'm extremely critical, obviously, of Israel and the United States, but I'm also critical of other countries which aren't using all of the legal mechanisms, including Arabic countries, not using the legal mechanisms available to them to stopping this.
Well, and do you know who called security on you? What the justification for that was?
I saw another version of the video that you just showed, and it seems to indicate that it was Matt Miller, right? He's going off to the side and waving them in and all of that. So even though Blinken is standing there in the, in front of the podium saying, I'll be happy to take any questions, la, 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 because I'm so open-minded and I love a free press so much. Miller is there preventing, making the bottom line is they would rather have the visual of me being carried out of there rather than subject Blinken to having to answer some of my questions. For example, before this video started, I said, when he made some reference to international law, I said, well, why don't you recognize the Geneva Conventions as applying to the Palestinians? Scandalous that they don't do that. I asked that several times. It's my pinned tweet is a sort of a montage of my questioning the State Department. And they deceive in every which way on that question, because it would be so scandalous for them to just say, yeah, the Geneva Conventions apply to everybody, but they don't apply to the Palestinians. Gaza can go to hell. They can't say that. And it basically is the legal construct or legal just phony justification to basically turn Gaza into a free fire zone. Another journalist picked up on my questioning several months ago, and he caught Blinken. He was just happening to pass Blinken, or maybe he was doing a bit of a stakeout in the halls of the State Department, Liam Cosgrove, and he actually asked Blinken about, can I ask you why you won't recognize the Geneva Conventions applying to the Palestinians? And Blinken's response was, "Is this on the record?" And when Cosgrove said, "Yeah, it's on the record," and he's like, "No answer." So they don't want this. They don't want to talk about the ways in which they are assaulting international law and any sense of international decency in this process. So that's why they got to haul me out. They would rather have the visual of me being hauled out of there than having to forced to answer serious questions like that.
Wow. That's insane. And we will go back and later on, I'll either try to find this Matt Miller video or we'll add it in later on. I do want to ask a question we already have from Jessica Mai. Does Sam have any optimism on Trump's new son-in-law, Massad Boulous? Trump is appointing him to Mid East Affairs advisor.
It's hard to be optimistic. I think, I try not to be a passive observer. We just need to act as best as we can, given whatever cards we're dealt. So we've gone through this many times. It's my entire adult life. The establishment comes in on the alleged liberal side and then the alleged right-wing side, and everybody that you think is opposed to the establishment, whether it's Obama or whether it's Trump, they're not opposed to the establishment. They're what I call the opposable thumb of the establishment. They just help it grab more. So we need to just push them as much as possible. I mean, look, the incoming State Department is Rubio. Jesus Christ. His statements, I caught just a little bit of his hearing. And he was doing the same justifications about, October 7th. And so, he was just totally, anything and everything that Israel does is justified.
Right.
Well,
we actually have, I think, a clip of Rubio that would be really useful to play. Let's take a look. Nate, this clip of Rubio is from his hearing, right? I believe confirmation hearing. Let's take a look at what he has to say.
This damage to its global credibility. First of all, it is going after a non-member state on the claims that I believe, in fact, I think just in the last 24 hours, the Israeli High Court filed an appeal before the ICC, even though it's not a member state. And I saw some of the filings from the prosecutor. Mr. Khan was involved in that process. And he argues that they have the right to go after non-members for their activities within the confines of member states in this case. And I think, first of all, the whole premise of his prosecution is flawed, beyond the process of it and the precedent that it sets, which is a very dangerous precedent for the United States of America, by the way, because this is a test run. This is a trial run to see, can we go after a head of state from a nation that's not a member? If we can go after them and we can get it done with regards to Israel, they will apply that to the United States at some point. And in fact, there have been threats to do so in the past. But the premise of the prosecution itself is completely and utterly flawed. As you said, they went ahead, I think they also went after Sinwar. Well, number one, Sinwar didn't travel around the world. He's not with us any longer. But he didn't travel around the world, was at no risk of being apprehended. Second of all, the moral equivalency piece of it was offensive.
Yeah, what he's basically arguing there is that Israel and the United States need to be above the law. And the fact of the matter is that the ICC, the International Criminal Court, for years attempted to evade any responsibility to do anything with the Palestinians. It was used extensively against all of these African leaders, and then they eventually used it against Putin, even though Putin isn't, Russia isn't a signatory either. The U.S. was delighted that a non-signatory was, targeted by the ICC in that case. And I don't believe that Ukraine is a signatory either. The Palestinians did sign it in a desperate attempt to get some accountability from the continuous attacks by Israel, and the ICC continuously stalled, recognizing Palestine's pleadings that yes, we recognize it, yes, we sign on to the court, and so on. For years and years, the ICC tried to brush that away, and even the current prosecutor attempted to not do anything for many, many months, close to a year. But then only after South Africa did their case, after a lot of people pushed for that, I was involved with that, and the ICJ took some action. Then finally the ICC started kicking in. So it's very belated and meager rectification from the ICC, but even that, Rubio doesn't even want that. And This shows that Israel, in a way, is useful to the U.S. establishment because they want to use it to set up a mechanism to undermine international law generally. I think international law is one of the targets. Democracy is a target of the establishment. International law is a target of the establishment. Anything that reins it in from doing whatever the hell it wants, whenever the hell it wants.
Well, I think that as remarkable as what is happening, in some ways, as remarkable as what is happening, no, let me rephrase that. It's not as remarkable. What is happening in Gaza is remarkable and disturbing. Then, the war on journalists in Gaza is remarkable and disturbing. And then this isn't comparable, obviously, what happened to you, but I think it's kind of the domestic front of this same war. So you're not allowed to highlight the criminality of the United States or the criminality of Israel that the United States government obviously enables. But I think another disgusting thing that we saw here is the way that certain people in the media rallied to the defense of security of Blinken and were critical of you and Max Blumenthal. And we'll show the Max clip later. But let's just take a look at how you and Max Blumenthal were presented by CNN.
Heard he was repeatedly interrupted by some cringeworthy heckling by activists. I mean, we were both sitting here pretty stunned, frankly. This is supposed to be a press conference with a room of journalists. Those were activists who were interrupting the Secretary of State when he initially was thanking the press and talking about the Israeli-Hamas deal.
Yeah, I think it's really surprising. A lot of our viewers will have seen protests on Capitol Hill, for example, during confirmation hearings, but it's very rare for something like that to happen at the State Department. I'm over there all the time in that briefing room, and you need to have a reason to be at the State Department. You need to have an appointment. You need to have press accreditation to come and go. So it's unclear who those people were. So I think there's a real security.
So, okay, to be fair, this guy is only at CNN, and it's not like he has a lot of resources or time on his hands or a staff. So he couldn't be bothered to, go on Twitter and maybe look and see that it was Max Blumenthal and Sam Husseini, which lots of people were tweeting about, obviously.
Question there. Allow me to be cheesy for a moment. This is a testament to American democracy and the way that American administrations approach their press rooms. They give accreditation to a wide number of journalists and increasingly.
Okay, again, Blinken news conference repeatedly interrupted by man asking questions about U.S. policy in Gaza. First of all, how dare you? How dare you interrupt the Secretary of State as he's talking with irrelevant questions about something that's totally unrelated to his job, which is U.S. policy in Gaza.
What I would call less mainstream journalists, more opinion journalists.
Wait, I thought you were just a random man. So it's now your crime is not that you're not a journalist. You're just an opinion journalist. That's what makes you an inappropriate person to be in that room.
To a wide number of journalists and increasingly what I would call less mainstream journalists, more opinion journalists who.
So let us praise, and feel free to interject whenever you want to. But part of the reason, by the way, I want to do this stream, and I was honestly for my own mental well-being, because I was so angry about this. I mean, I was really disturbed by the footage of you, and then I was just so disturbed by things like this. How dare these people come on CNN and try to portray it as a sign of democracy that they allow journalists in there? Journalists, even journalists who aren't totally mainstream. Like, that is just so generous of these people to let in the riffraff like you and me, Sammy. I haven't been there, but I'm sure if I were there, I'd be considered, a random woman or an opinionated journalist.
Yeah, I mean, part of what I think is hilarious is this alleged contrast between mainstream and opinion, as if virtually all mainstream journalists aren't just spouting their partisan talking points.
100%.
Virtually no grounding in actual facts or, researching something or anything like that. So I think that's kind of rich.
It's also, I've always said this. It's much more, I think, dangerous to pretend to be objective. Like you and I mean, you don't lie, obviously, but you have I don't want to put words in your mouth. I would say that you are critical of Israel. I think if you're objective, you have to be pointing that out, because the rest of the media is so subjective in their embrace of Israel and whitewashing of Israel. But forget that qualification that I'm making. I always think that the journalists who pretend to have no ideology are actually the most dangerous ones, because then people kind of let down their guard and they think that they're reading fact and not opinion, when every single factual article from the New York Times is opinion based and serves an agenda.
That's part of the reason that I keep going back to core facts that get ignored by the establishment.
Right.
Does
true.
Israel have nuclear weapons? Oh, you
Right.
can't acknowledge that Israel has nuclear weapons. Maybe something's really demented about your worldview. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? I asked Matt Miller months ago about the Hannibal Directive. He pretended not to know about it. And and then the news conference just keeps going, and he calls on some favorite journalist and change the topic. And that's supposed to be the end of the story, and then he doesn't call on me for another month. If the State Department isn't acknowledging the Hannibal Directive, then what the hell is, while they're pontificating about how important U.S. and other lives of the captives are, then that's a garbage system.
Right.
So that's why I keep going back to these core facts, and that's what I tried to do in the questions that I outlined. I also think, they know full well who Max Blumenthal and Sam Husseini are. They just don't want to say our names.
Of course, yeah.
Because they know that half their listeners will Google our names, and they'll bail out of their system.
Right. Also, but which is it? Like, they don't know who you are, right? You're a random man, or you're a kind of a persona non grata journalist, right?
Yeah.
Like, just pick a narrative. But they're so dishonest that their lies kind of contradict themselves. Okay, let's keep playing more, and then we're going to get back a little to the Hannibal Directive.
The opportunity to go to the State Department, to go to the White House, and to ask.
Sorry, let me rewind this. It's too. I couldn't keep my mouth shut because it's so infuriating.
To American democracy and the way that American administrations approach their press rooms. They give accreditation to a wide number of journalists, and increasingly what I would call less mainstream journalists, more opinion journalists, who have the opportunity to go to the State Department, to go to the White House, and to ask questions of the representatives of that administration. So I'm always amazed whenever I go to these different press rooms about who's actually sitting there. It's not just Americans, it's people from all over the world, from Turkey, from China, from South Korea, who get to ask questions of people like Matt Miller at the State Department or Karine Jean-Pierre at the White House. And
wow, that is so amazing. I cannot believe that our country lets in foreigners into press briefings.
As offensive as that is, Katie, it's kind of funny because a lot of them are actually very right-wing foreigners.
Right.
Yeah. They're like, Pakistani right-wing journalists saying, why aren't you going harder on India, or East European journalists, saying, why aren't you putting more sanctions on Russia? It's kind of comical in some ways as to who gets in there. So,
but it's just such a ridiculous thing to say. I mean, I'm waiting them for be like, they even let, like, you don't even have to be a white man, property owner. They still let you in there.
Yeah. Although I should say that, there are a fair number of Arab journalists, and there are some exceptions, like Saeed regularly.
Amazing. Yeah.
Regularly asks, not quite as pointed as me, I should say, or Max, but still good questions on a regular basis. A lot of the other Arab journalists are just sort of going along for the ride. And they're, that's sort of a disturbing thing to see.
Well, let's keep watching this extremely enlightening video. Yeah.
So there's a relatively open policy for now in these different press rooms.
So a relatively open policy for now. He's saying, suggesting that, it's going to change with Trump. But obviously, if this happened under Trump, these same journalists who are, felling over how amazing our media system is here would be calling it out as authoritarian, fascist, the end of democracy, the end of a free press.
Yeah, maybe I should have waited a week, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Well, I want to show another interesting representation of what you said. Brad, can we take a look at these tweets from Aaron Rupar, who really has very strong feelings about Biden, and let's just say they're not very critical. If you don't have it, I can play it.
I'm sorry, Katie, were these text tweets or were they video
Sorry,
clips?
they are in, hold on one second. I think I didn't add it. I thought I meant to add it. They were things that I tweeted out today. So let me should I just go to maybe the easiest thing for me to do would just be to go to my own Twitter.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot. Sorry, guys. This is a day, the day of tweet, so day of stream. And we did a really long stream earlier this week, which was really great. But so apologies that I'm just sorting this now. And also thanks very much to Brad and to Nate for all their help in preparing for this. Also, we did a great interview today with Daniel Levy, who is a former Israeli negotiator, and with the amazing Mohammed Shahada. This is on Useful Idiots, about the ceasefire, and they're both pretty amazing. Let's see. So we made fun of CNN for calling Sam just like a random man. And then I wanted to take a look at, okay, here we go.
It's like the Onion area man, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
Exactly. Yeah. So here is Aaron Rupar. Here's how he tweeted about what happened. One second. And in fact, this gives us a good chance to see it from another perspective. So let's show. Okay, let's, Brad, could we play this clip? No, I need to do it, right? Hold on. One second. Is this playing? Is that playing? Was that making sound just then?
No, I can take care of it. I would just need a minute if you wanted to go to something else first.
Is this playing now or no?
Oh, now it is, yeah.
Okay, great. So this is Max Blumenthal.
Be genocide. How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? You too, Matt. You smirk through the whole thing every day. You smirk through the genocide.
Thank you. In our democracy.
Reporters in Gaza were on the receiving end of your bombs. Why did you keep the
So,
bombs flowing when we had a deal?
I'm happy to address questions.
We had a deal. Everyone in this room knows we had a deal, Tony, and you kept the bombs flowing.
I'm happy to address questions when we get a chance. Thank you.
Did you want to finish? Why did you allow my friends to be massacred? Why did you?
I'm happy to address your questions when we get to questions. Thank you. Thank you.
You helped destroy our religion, Judaism, by associating.
Yeah, I have a statement. Yeah, I have a statement to make. Thank you.
Okay, so that's Max Blumenthal, and according to Aaron Rupar, Blinken's press briefing is interrupted by a demonstrator. He's having a hard time getting through his opening statements without being interrupted by journalist/demonstrator. Okay, so you get promoted, Sammy, because he calls you a journalist/demonstrator, which I guess is an upgrade, right? And as someone points out here, you are actually, you not only are you an independent journalist, but you write for places like The Nation. And then at one point, someone actually said to him, to Aaron, like, why are you calling him a demonstrator, not a journalist? And he goes, I didn't say he was not a journalist, as if he should get credit for not saying demonstrator who is not a journalist.
Yeah, I don't know. Is he a journalist?
No, I mean he's just to be fair, he's a clipper. That's what he does. He clips. Yeah. He clips media, which is useful, but the problem is he clips media pretending that he's being objective and just capturing things, and is an absolute diehard Biden ideologue who loves Biden. Yeah.
Right. And that's what the system, the way that it's established, recognizes as alleged journalism in large part. So, yeah, I mean, I am trying to set up a structure whereby officials are held accountable and that you have an opportunity to ask serious questions. And they have a whole series of mechanisms to prevent that from happening. And that's what is shown here today. So when I try to push the envelope to force that to happen, then it's like, oh, you're a demonstrator. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's it's all access journalism. And if you don't have access, if you're not willing to, water down any criticism to such a pathetic degree that, you're just being a complete flack, then you're not, you're going to have very, very limited access. And that's the way that they want to set it up. And it's basically an assault on the First Amendment. And this is one manifestation of it. I'm kind of jealous of Max because, he came in there prepared to just, articulate something. And I went in there with a different strategy of just trying
You
to
had actual questions.
try to ask targeted
Right.
little questions.
Right.
But then,
I mean, Max had leading questions. They were questions, but yes, it was a condemnation and yours. But I think it's actually useful to have different roles. Like you mentioned, Saeed, it can be less pointed. I think you have to have people who run the gamut, right? And Saeed is, I think, as much as you can be as how would I call it? Like, I feel like Saeed is that perfect sweet spot that we need, where someone is pushes the boundaries without overstepping them at all. And then you need people in between that and Max Blumenthal, basically, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's been frustrating for me. I mean, I remember one time, I think right after October 7th, Miller was like answering Saeed and saying, and they killed, 1,200 innocent civilians. I'm like, what? Innocent civilians? And like nobody else was objecting to that, including Saeed, who I think does a lot of good work. Yeah. So, it's
you can only keep track of so many,
Exactly.
lies.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. That's part of the problem.
Right. Now let's take a look at, I want to show another tweet by, and this is a tweet that I'm not joking, I actually thought was a joke. It's by Aaron David Miller. Brad, let me know if that's ready, because I also have a question for you about the Hannibal Directive, because something that shocks me is that still, I mean, it shocks me, it doesn't shock me, it makes a lot of sense, the fact that people don't know what that is. So for people who are watching who don't know what that is, please explain it. And, I try to bring this up to people who I think need to have their, the spell of Israel as a safe haven for Jews broken. I think it's a really good, gateway drug, kind of like gateway awakener for people who really think well, Israel, they do bad things, but without Israel, where would we be? We Jews, we would be, there'd be another Holocaust. And I think this is so important in breaking that spell. So tell people about the Hannibal Doctrine and what we know, the Hannibal Directive, and how we know it was used, please.
I'm not a complete expert on it. Max, I think, has done more work on it, as well as Ali Abunim and other people. But there have been several occasions, apparently, where it was invoked, including on October 7th, where Israel kills, and I've asked at the State Department, where Israel, the Israeli military kills at least military people, and apparently on October 7th, even civilians, and quite possibly even non-Israeli civilians, that is U.S. and other foreign nationals, lest they fall into the hands of Palestinian groups. That is, Israel would rather have them dead than have a Palestinian group hold on to somebody like that, because that gives the Palestinian group leverage. And they can say, we will release this soldier, right? Well, Gilad Shalit was a soldier that the Israeli that Hamas or some other group captured many years ago, and then they were able to trade him for 1,000 Palestinian prisoners / captives / hostages. So Israel doesn't want that. Israel doesn't want to have to negotiate in good faith in any way, shape, or form. So they would rather kill their own Israeli Jewish citizens rather than give these Palestinian groups any kind of leverage. That is the crux of the Hannibal Directive. And as I indicated, I asked Matt Miller about it several months ago, and he claimed not to know about it. He said, I have no knowledge of that alleged directive.
Right. And again, you would think that this is something that the U.S. government would care about, since obviously they may not care about Palestinian people, but they certainly claim to care about Israelis.
And they claim to care about Americans. If Hamas and company are apparently holding on to U.S. citizens, and the U.S. government is not saying, you, Israel, have to not do the Hannibal Directive on our own citizens. They're not doing that.
Right. That's obscene. Okay, so let's take a look at this tweet that, again, I did think was sarcasm. It's from Aaron David Miller. Aaron David Miller is a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment. He's the host of Carnegie Connects and former State Department analyst, advisor, negotiator in Republican and Democratic administrations. What did he have to say about this? In 27 years at State, never seen a situation where a Secretary of State, a caring, compassionate man, is heckled in his own building by a heckler yelling, "Why aren't you in The Hague?" A new low in civility and discourse. Oh, scroll down. There's a comment from Bradley Bloom. He's objectively guilty of facilitating war crimes. What he's like personally is irrelevant. It's not his building. It's ours. That you don't describe the crimes as a new low in civility and discourse, but rather a credentialed reporter asking a question speaks to who you are.
That's great.
Yeah. Well said, Brad. So, yeah. So what is your response to this, distinguished gentleman?
Yeah, I was taken aback by the new building, his own building, and yeah, well, I mean, I guess progress is being made. If he's never seen anything like that before, I've seen some weird antics in the press room. I mean,
Yeah.
I've seen other journalists be upset and like storming the door at the end of a news conference. All kinds of weird personal animosities crop up, and so on. But yeah, I mean, I didn't get up there and spew a set of profanities. Everything I said was substantial about policy, accusing him of war crimes and so on. So,
Right.
if that's chalk on fingernails on chalkboard to Aaron David Miller, maybe he needs to learn about international law or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, he did work at the State Department, so he's probably sensitive about this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, grace of God go I.
Exactly. And let's, I know you have to leave soon, and we really appreciate your time. Let's just take a look. I thought as a cool contrast, Drop Site News tweeted this out. They compared the way CNN described you to the way that they reacted to James Woods, who famously, of course, said, kill them all, referring to Palestinians. And he's one of the people who lost his home in the California wildfire. So let's take a look at this.
I'm 77 years old, man. I can't walk up these hills. It's like Mount Everest here. It's like, pretty steep. So, it's just I posted this on X, but Sarah was on with her 8-year-old niece last night. And she came out. I'm sorry. Just, one day you're swimming in the pool and the next day it's all gone. But she came out with her little Yeti piggy bank for us to rebuild our house.
Oh my gosh, James Woods, we all hope that you will be able to rebuild your house, maybe starting with that little Yeti piggy bank. And we're just glad that you're okay and your wife is okay.
I'm sorry,
you have your
I'm
lives.
usually...
Yeah, no, I mean, this is real and it's raw.
I thought I
and
would
you,
be stronger than this.
you don't need, you are, you know what? Strength is not measured by whether, you hold in crying or not. Strength is what you are doing now and helping your neighbors and shining a light on the great, amazing work of all those firefighters and emergency crews out there. You have so much strength, and we appreciate you coming on to reflect what so many others just like you are experiencing in that raw emotion right now. We wish you the best, you and your wife, as you rebuild your lives. So many people are doing that right now and trying to process what's going on. So, James, and also keep us posted on your 94-year-old neighbor and everything going there. We're going to continue to talk, and we wish you the very best.
He's okay. He's okay.
Yeah.
They found him. He's in the hospital.
He's okay. Yeah.
I just worry. If anybody knows where Robert Trinkteller is, call me. Let me know. All right.
That's an important message. And also there's this app that's really important.
So yeah, really, really moving from Pamela of CNN, Pamela Brown. It's nice that she has, I guess, compassion for people who, wish death on Palestinians. But if you are maybe it's because you're Palestinian yourself, actually. If you're a Palestinian reporter, you may deserve to be, you are cringeworthy. You're cringe, and you also deserve to be dragged out.
Yeah, it's funny when people, this whole selective compassion kind of thing is so. It brought to mind for me years ago. I think it might have been a Kathy Kelly story where she meets a man in Iraq, and she, what do you wish for George Bush? And he says, I wish that George Bush goes to heaven. She's like, why do you wish that George Bush goes to heaven? He's like, so that he meets all of the beautiful Iraqi children that he killed. So it's hard not to think about that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Oh, a miracle has happened. James Woods' house survives LA fires. But great. But any final words from you? I know you have another interview, but I just saw you getting moved with that, with what you were saying.
No.
Lost in this conversation sometimes are those the children who are being killed, and watching journalists be upset. I'll call them journalists. You are a journalist, but watching journalists like Pam upset at questioning people in power is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, it's totally disgusting. It's totally disgusting, especially when we're talking about people who are in positions of power that is inflicting massive carnage on huge numbers of innocent people, and who are minimally humanized, if at all, often demonized in brazen and subtle ways. And I mean, I feel like I don't take in a lot of reality of suffering. I try to pursue what I know in terms of policy and legal violations and duplicity and lies and so on. But even all of that is sort of antiseptic compared to the brutal reality of bombing hospitals and mass carnage that it's hard to take in. And then you have big media outlets attempt to very selectively manifest the emotions of the public in a way that manipulates it.
Right.
And allows them to grieve only for certain things and not for other things, and to empathize with certain people and to effectively massively dehumanize other people. It's all incredibly horrific to me.
Right. Like empathize with Blinken and James Woods.
Right. We have to see it from their point of view.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, Sam, thank you so much. And we will link to your article and to your website as well.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thanks a lot. And you too. All right. That was great. So let's see, Brad, we could wrap it there because we haven't. Yeah, I think we have to wrap it there because we did a really long stream the other day. And I have a potential, what, I'm going to, instead of waiting, no, we can't wait for this long for another I'm going to have this person come on next week. Okay. So I want to thank everyone for joining. Brad, do you have anything you want to say? I've kind of put you through the ringer today. This is very last minute for Brad.
Oh, no, I just think Sam hit the nail on the head of what I was thinking at that exact same moment about the juxtaposition of how they framed or the sympathy for James Woods versus the segment with Sam and Blinken was like, yeah, I don't really care about the pundit, but like what that trains the audience to think, like without them even knowing it over time, the consequences of that are just, it's not good.
Right.
And I think Sam put it very, very well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. And that's a chilling thing that he said about the Iraqi children. And yeah, it's an example of manufactured consent. And I do want to show, I have this ready now.
Well, and just real quickly too, like, I don't know, I hope that we get a chance to talk about this sometime in the near future, but just the disastrous failure of the State Department of trying to ban TikTok and everyone moving to Red Note. Like, it's the #1 app, period, in America. And just how spectacularly that backfired. And now so many people are getting woken up to maybe everything we've been told about China is not exactly correct. So like them wanting to, insulate Americans from that by banning TikTok only made it exponentially worse, at least in terms of their goal. Here, when they're talking about like Blinken and these people are talking about, how great America is and the importance of a free press and whatnot, while literally at the same time physically carrying Sam out of the room for simply saying he didn't say anything obscene, nothing, no profanity, no nothing. I mean, just the optics of that, what they're showing to the world, it's just, I'm like, do they understand how bad that is? But, Sam had mentioned to me earlier that, they potentially, they just don't care,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you see a lot of fear also in them. Like, I think that on some level, they probably know, like, wow, we are covering for this genocide and we're uncomfortable when we see other people questioning the genocide. And I think that they probably, on some level, I mean, I don't know, not to sound self-righteous, because it's not like you and I are, angels, but I think you and I are
speak for yourself, Katie.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. Yeah. But you and I are in a realm where the stuff that people accept as either deny, overlook, or justify, like, I just know you personally, obviously we spend a lot of time talking about this stuff, but these are things that like horrify us. And to be a type of person who errs instead of, like, by default, they don't err against the powerful and with the powerless. They by default err with the powerful against the powerless. Right. And I bet, though, I mean, I don't know. So I don't know how their brains works, is what I was going to say. Like, I don't know their psychology, but I wonder if they, on some level, because I have to say, like, that footage of Sam was pretty disturbing. And while we're not talking like Gaza's disturbing, but it is disturbing seeing someone dragged out of a venue like that, especially when these are the halls of power and they're supposed to be, we all know have such bullshit, but these are supposed to be, sanctified spaces of democracy and press, and
like, at a bare minimum, they can, like, be as fascistic and authoritarian and oppressive everywhere else, but keeping up that visage domestically to some degree, and just to see that go away, I mean, not to be,
and when it's a Democrat, right? Because the whole story is that this is what happens under Trump. So when it happens under Biden, they have to pretend that it's, like, in other words, now the crime is that it's cringeworthy. Like, that's the crime.
Yeah. Or the crime is, you're violating norms, or whatever. But yeah, whether it's international law or the talking points of how we do that, we don't do this, the right wing does this and everything, like, they're just systematically taking away any sort of validity for any of these talking points for anyone to take that seriously.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. There is even a guy, I'll cut this in later, but there is even a guy on Twitter who it has in his bio, like, conservative Christian, lover of Israel. And even he tweeted out, because he saw that he tweeted out a clip of CNN calling Sam, like, a man. And he even tweeted out something like, I hate Hamas, I love Israel, but this is, like, too much. Yeah. Like, even he had to say, this is a journalist.
Yeah. Well, and I was just going to say a minute ago, when you were saying it was like fear, yeah, I would totally agree. These sorts of actions they come from a place of fear, in my opinion. Whether they know it or not, like, these sorts of actions are not the sort of actions of a very self-assured, state entity, government. Like, if they're so paranoid that, like, one app or one question at a presser, cannot be heard, like, no, it's coming from a place of fear, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, let's just show that drop site analysis, that tweet, because shout out to Drop Site News for putting that juxtaposition together between those two Pamela Brown clips. But can we just show their tweet? Because I thought that they said it really nicely.
Yeah. There you go. Is this what you wanted?
Yeah. So just this CNN anchor Pamela Brown describes journalist Sam Husseini confronting Secretary Blinken for his continued enabling of genocide in Gaza, as cringeworthy heckling by activists. Her sharp critique for a fellow journalist stands in contrast to her handling of actor James Woods, recently famous for publicly calling for the continued slaughter of 2.3 million people in Gaza when he cried on air over fears that one of his houses may have burned down in the LA fires.
One of his houses.
I know, one of them, yeah. It ultimately did not. See the cringeworthy video below. And yeah, so I think that's well said, Drop Site News. But
yeah,
anyway.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, so one of the people he's not joining us tonight, but good news, he will be joining us on Tuesday. And that is the other heckler, the other cringe-worthy heckler, Max Blumenthal, who also spoke some truth to power in addressing Blinken. He will be joining us on Tuesday night.
Oh,
so
awesome.
yeah. So I'm really glad we did this emergency stream. Got to hear from Sam. Got to hear what happened, how it happened.
Really thankful for Sam.
Yes,
making the
Sam
time.
does great work. Also, we got to call out the media a little bit. Aaron Rupar, a little bit CNN, that guy from the Carnegie Endowment. And so yeah, so everyone who is this is there's sides in this world, and you're either on the side of the good or the bad, and that comes up in Gaza, and it even comes up in how you react to a journalist being dragged from a presser.
And just to go back to that whole TikTok thing, it'll be interesting because then by Tuesday, I believe they're supposed to, according to the bill Biden signed, that's supposed to be banned on Sunday, the 19th.
Oh, okay.
And it's my understanding, it would seem to me, they're kind of crapping their pants based on literally over 100 million Americans downloaded Red Note and are using it. I think that the calculation, and this is just my speculation, but Mark Zuckerberg, bending the knee recently, I think that the calculation was if I can get rid of TikTok, then everyone will go to Instagram. And for that to have just failed so spectacularly.
Right.
Now I saw a headline earlier today that the Biden administration is exploring options they would have to basically at least postpone the TikTok ban now. And the only reason for that I can think of would be because they're like, oh shit.
Right.
Yeah.
This isn't turning out so going so well.
So I guess in 72 hours from now we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Let's see. Can we show one more thing? Just one more tweet that I did.
Yeah.
I texted it to you. Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
And thanks again, everyone, for your patience.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
And it's all my fault, by the way. Brad and Nate have been very helpful. I just got kind of froze in prepping for this too. I was coming out of another interview with Mohammed Shahada, which was amazing, and everyone has to watch Useful Idiots tomorrow. But it's just really intense. Not talking to someone who has all these people lost in Gaza.
Oh,
I mean,
gosh.
sometimes you lose sight of it, but yeah. So yeah, Blinken's press briefing is interrupted by a demonstrator, and I quote tweeted that interesting way to write. Journalists are physically removed from press conference for asking questions. And then I just want to show one more thing because I can't help but kind of I think this is just so rich coming from.
Do you want to scroll down, or is it something totally separate?
I think it's hard for me to get to. It starts here. I think I have to do it because I don't know how to. I have to show it in my thing, but it's related to this. So let me just do a share.
All right.
1 second. Okay. This is like one of these, you guys, this is like old school streams that we used to do where you get to see to see it, behind the scenes. I think this is the right one. Let me see.
There's no fourth walls in those streams.
Oh no way. Yeah. So we're bringing that back a little bit. Okay. So here's the, again, the Aaron, I don't know why I say Aaron Rupar. Blinken's press briefing is interrupted by demonstrator. Blinken is having a hard time getting through his opening statements without being interrupted by journalists/demonstrators. Get your hands off me. Get your hands off me. You are hurting me. Another journalist/demonstrator is taken out of the Blinken briefing. And someone named Tommy Faciola says, why do you call them demonstrators? And Aaron writes, because they are demonstrating. And Timmy Faciola says, if they're not journalists, then what does that make you, Aaron? And he goes, did I say they aren't journalists? I don't think I did. Like, that is so weird. Like, he wants credit for not lying, basically.
That sort of misdirection or deflection, it's like you must be taking lessons from Pierce Morgan or someone like that.
Yeah. Well, we can't say. Yeah. I mean, not that I wouldn't go on back on the show, obviously.
Oh,
I'm
no.
just kidding. I know. I'm kidding. I'm pretending that I can't say anything about Pierce. Pierce, I challenge you. Will you condemn Hamas to me? If you don't have me back on your show, that means you're not condemning
That's
Hamas.
right. That means, yeah.
That's what's there, yeah. And then let's see. Want to just read all the super chats. Fanny Aretha gave us a super sticker. Thank you so much. Firmware, there are legions of supporters for you, Sam and Katie, and the list keeps growing. You are on the right side of history. Do you guys think CNN this guy on CNN believes what he is saying? Super sticker from Wanker Tanker and at your mom's. Thank you for $20.
Oh, thank you.
We kind of question. I mean, we kind of addressed that a little bit earlier on. Like, do they believe this? I mean, I just think that they have to. They would hate. I think people are on a spectrum. Some people are just actual evil, and some people are duped. I don't know, but I do think that, like, some people, they know on some level and they can't deal with it. They can't look at it. That if they looked at it, they wouldn't be able to sleep at night.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking, I think it was last week, when was it Bob Scheer was just, like talking about how, they're people, which, yeah, I agree with that. But I feel like what you do or you choose to do also kind of is a reflection of who you are.
Yes.
Like Blinken could have gotten another job rather than, like, if you look at the way things currently are and, saying, well, I could have this very high profile, prestigious job, but it would require me to do, X, Y, and Z in order to be able to sleep at night. Well, to me, in my opinion, kind of a reflection of who he is, that he chose to do that. Like, that was an acceptable trade-off, and he decided to do that rather than doing something else.
Right. True.
But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Nate. Thank you, Phantomus Fanta. And we will see you next Tuesday night. And I guess by then Trump will be president. That's kind of scary.
Oh my God.
I mean, not scary in a different way. I mean, the guy who's president now is scary. Oh, no, wait, when Brad, I'm really upset because when Trump is president, we're going to have the media will be disrespected and the press will be disrespected, and like people in the Middle East may be killed. So it's going to be all really new. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and now I really got to get cracking on thinking up a new intro theme song.
That's true. Right.
Oh
That's
boy.
True. Someone did right. Like, I hope that this doesn't change. That theme song doesn't change because it's so good.
Man,
I meant to write to you. I wanted to be like, well, I mean, that is a nice thing to hear, but
half the people will say that, and then the other half of the people are just like.
We could have a vote. We need to have more votes on our YouTube page. Maybe we can have ask people to vote on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Should we Patreon this at all, or what do you think?
No,
this is just a free bonus. No, we wouldn't. We definitely wouldn't Patreon any of Sammy. I thought maybe our chat, but now we gave people a lot of Patreon this week. Yeah. If you haven't already joined our Patreon and you are looking for an excuse to join the Patreon, wow, can I recommend a bunch of stuff, including hold on 1 second. This Tony Greenstein's our amazing interview with the amazing Tony Greenstein, Zionism During the Holocaust. You get that if you're a Patreon supporter. You also get our full interview with the incredible Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro. And you will get early access to a Wally Shawn interview that we did. That
was great.
Which was really great. And you'll get early access to an Ireland live stream No, to a live show that we taped in Dublin that I thought, did I tell you this, Aaron? Did I tell you this, Brad? I thought we lost the video. Did I tell you this part? It turns out we didn't.
Wow.
I told you that part already, or no?
Yeah. No,
Okay,
you wrote it to me. You didn't.
Oh,
tell
I
it to
did
me
tell. Yeah.
verbally.
So I thought we lost it. And I was pretty upset. Like we had the audio, which was great, but we have the video. So those are all the reasons to join the Patreon at patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/the Katie Halper Show. You get Wallace Shawn, you get Ireland people, you get Palestinian people in conversation with Irish people, and then you get Yaakov Shapiro and Tony Greenstein. You get a bunch of Jews thrown in there too, and this Jew right here,
and random art clips that I might make.
Oh yeah, Brad, and then you get random art clips by this possible Jew. That's another thing we don't know. The next live show we do, Brad, I'm gonna get your DNA results.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I'll just have to remember to not take any like drinks from you that you offer me, because you're gonna like
your
swab
DNA.
it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and Jonathan writes, and I bet you could do a great intro using remixed Trump lines.
Jonathan. That's what the trick is just finding the right one. But yeah.
What could you guys, in fact, well, let's do that. Let's put that out. Oh my God. Jonathan just wrote to me. Wow. Guys, we have 1,145 people watching and we have 1.2 thousand likes.
Wow. Thank you, everyone.
We are good. Wow, guys.
They're
also,
good. They're good.
They're very good. Yeah. And then there's someone, I don't want to,
don't.
What? No.
Oh,
no. I just wanted to send out, I wanted to send out positive vibes. I don't want to announce someone that we know and we care about a lot is not doing well. And so if he's watching or anyone who knows him is watching, we are sending the best healing vibes. And this is someone who I'm really, really hoping that he pulls through. But I do want to say, if he doesn't, we have captured some time with him. And I'm really glad. This is someone who we interviewed for this documentary we're working on. And it's one of those things where I'm kicking myself that we didn't interview him more and more and more, visit him more, talk to him more, record more over the phone, over, whatever, StreamYard. But at the same time, I'm also so happy that we do have the time that we had with him. He's really, 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 really amazing. And I'm just so honored that we got to interview him, and he'll be out there in one form or another. Yeah.
Well said.
Yes. So, okay, we will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone.